he introduced himself, or rather, not a Sugriv. When Ram spoke to Vali, he introduced himself as the servant of Bharat. And all the monkeys assembled there were intrigued why such a powerful warrior was so humble. Okay. Any other word? Kids? Rasraj? Yes, yeah.
Small.
Small, okay. Mataji's? Desire, okay. Prabhu's? Yes? Service. Even when the service that the squirrel did in building the bridge was small, Ram saw her desire to serve and appreciated that. Okay. Any other words? Comment. Oh, comment. That's an interesting word. Okay. Mataji's? Serendipitous, okay. This is becoming more interesting now. Now, Prabhu's? Courage. When the Vanaras had lost all their courage in being able to find Sita or even to survive, when the giant vulture Sampati came marching towards them, a serendipitous comment by Angada that they would meet the same fate as had befallen Jatayu suddenly changed the disposition of Sampati, and then Sampati revealed to them where Sita was. Okay. So now one last and then we'll turn on you now. Okay. Yes. Okay. Sorry? Audacious. Okay. Okay, audacious. Yes. Enthusiasm. Okay, yes. Prabhu's? Sorry? Service already done. Okay, yeah, okay. That's good. Anger. Enthusiasm, audacious, anger. When the Vanaras came back after finding Sita, they were filled with so much enthusiasm that they started celebrating by plucking the fruits from the garden of private garden of Sugriv. And his guards felt that this was so audacious. They went and reported to Sugriv, but Sugriv, realizing they're celebrating victory, he felt no anger. So this is not a sentence, this is a paragraph. Okay, so for the kid now, from my side. Happy. And not a sentence, Sita was happy. No. We need a little more meaningful. Some situation where somebody became happy. Okay, for the kids, it's happy. For the Matajis, it is unhappy. And for the Prabhus, it is confused. Happy?
Lord Ram was happy when Hanuman returned after finding Mother Sita.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Yes. Unhappy?
He was unhappy, same thing, like, Hanuman was unhappy because he was not taking back Sita with him.
Yes. When Hanuman said that Hanuman could not take Sita back, he was unhappy. Yes, thank you, good. So, confused? Okay. You got confused?
I was confused in the books.
What did you say?
I was confused in the book.
You were confused in the book. Which book? Which book? Okay, confused. Any other Prabhus?
By seeing Vibhishana coming to Lord Rama, Sugriva got confused.
Okay, confused. I'm not sure whether he was confused. He was suspicious a little bit more. You could say that. I'll borrow your sentence. When Vibhishan approached Lord Ram, the various monkeys had different reactions. Hanuman, who knew Sugriva's heart, was happy. Some of the other Vanaras, like Sugriva, who saw that this was Ravan's brother, was unhappy. And other Vanaras were confused. Okay. Careful, cheerful, fearful. Careful. Any of the other kids? Okay, careful.
Okay.
Actually, you are unfair to the kids. They are asked first, they have to answer. It goes the other way. So, Prabhu's first. Careful, cheerful, fearful. Fearful. All the Prabhus have become fearful now. Yes. Fearful. Or Raj got a sentence? Yes, bro, please.
When Hanuman couldn't find Sita in the palace of Ravan, he became fearful whether Sita had been killed. Or if he cannot find Sita, then all the calamities that will happen. Ram will give up his life. Then other will be like a chain reaction.
Yes, contemplating the results of consequence of his not finding Sita, Hanuman became fearful. Yes, good, thank you. Yes, so now we have Mataji's cheerful. Cheerful? Yes.
When Lord Ram returned with Sita back after exile, all the Ayodhya-vasis were cheerful, especially Bharat's wife.
Yes, beautiful. All of them were cheerful. Good, thank you. Yes, careful.
Through Hanuman's careful examination of Lanka, Hanuman found Sita.
Oh, that's a carefully crafted sentence. Good one. Okay, so now the first Mataji's, then kids and then Prabhus. Okay, last round. Surprised. Shocked. I think I already did shocked. No? Now we can't use shocked. Surprised. Bewildered. And tempted. Surprised. Yes, please.
Darshan was surprised when he heard Kaikeyi's the two boons that she asked for, because that was totally against her nature. But he understood what had happened to Hanuman. He was initially surprised.
I mean, you are being very kind to Kaikeyi. Surprise would be the mildest of reactions. Over there. I think we could apply it earlier. That when, yeah, but surprise would be like, you know, he was shocked, he was devastated. Yeah, but you could take it a little earlier. It was surprise. Initially he was surprised, then he was shocked. You could say that is true. Generally, do we have unhappy surprises? The word surprise generally has a slightly positive connotation. Yeah. Sorry?
Shock is unhappy surprise.
Yeah, shock is an unhappy surprise. That's a good definition of shock. Yeah, so initially he was surprised. Thank you. So what is boy's word? Approves. Go ahead.
Bewilderment.
Bewildered, yeah.
Understanding Sita was nowhere to be found. Ram was put into a state of bewilderment. So I was bewildered.
Yeah. The sentence is grammatically correct, devotionally incorrect. Can you say Lord Ram was bewildered? Yeah, in the Leela, Ram was bewildered, yeah. Seeing that Sita could not be found. The later incident is there. Ram became so bewildered that he became angry and he said, I will shoot the weapons that will destroy everyone. So then Lakshman calmed him down. Yeah, he became bewildered. Yes. For boys, the kids. What was your word?
Yeah. Wasn't it? Yeah, okay.
Oh, yours was bewildered. You stole that word. Now you have to decide whether it's a compliment or an insult.
Sitting in the voice.
She's confusing you more now. Okay. So I was surprised, bewildered, not shocked. It was. I'm surprised. Okay, we'll give you a simple word. Simple. Can I have a tissue paper? Simple.
Oh, wait, that's the word.
Do you want complicated? So, this is a simple way. This game I found is a simple way to do Leela Smaran. Yeah. Simple. Thank you.
The squirrel's simple act of devotion pleased Lord Rama.
Squirrel's simple act of devotion. That's a simply. I don't know whether to think that's this. It's simply brilliant or simply lazy. It's a brilliant sentence, but because somebody had spoken earlier, so it is simply lazy. Good work. So, as author, for me, words are the tools of my trade. Like somebody uses flowers, somebody is a pujari, somebody is decorating the deities. They'll always look for flowers which are the most beautiful, and in the most beautiful combination, how can you offer them to decorate the Lord with them? So for me, wherever I see words, I think of how words can be used in Krishna's service. So whenever I learn a new word, the first thing I think is what sentence I could use it in. So thank you so much for participating in this. Are you confused now? So, but interestingly, did we do any sentence with Hanuman? One or two sentences we did. Yeah. So, we'll talk about Hanuman today, but we'll start with a theme. So many of you may have got this book. I think you can go to the text 259. Do you have a copy of that book? 2.59. You have enough for two people can share maybe if required. Can you tell the page number? I have an older version of the book actually. 2.59 verse. Page 78, is it? So, this is a book that is, as its title, Prayers Inspired by the Bhagavad-Gita. For me, among all the scriptures, the Bhagavad-Gita is the book which I have connected with the most. And the Gita's verses are not just sources of wisdom for me. They are like personal friends. And feel like I have a relationship with all the verses, with some more than others. And just like if you have a friend, then you want to know more and more about the friend. And one way you know more about the friend, our friend, is by meeting them in different contexts or different places. If we know somebody at work, then we meet them at their home. We meet them in some recreational place. We meet them in a temple. We meet them in some high pressure situation. So we learn more. So like that, I have been, when I was writing Gita daily articles and writing books on the Gita, I tried to approach the Gita's verses from different perspectives. Srila Prabhupada also said that study scripture scrutinizingly means study from different perspectives. So when I had read Vishwanath Chakravarti's commentary on the Gita, that's one of my favorite commentaries, he shows how the Gita is filled with so much devotion for Krishna. So I was thinking about how when we approach the Gita's verses, if we could approach them not just in a mood of understanding, but seeing them as sources of praying. That wisdom can inspire a well-informed prayer within our heart. And then I was going through Mukundamala Stotra, which is a composition by Kulashekar Maharaj. And there I saw something which to me seemed to be literally an application of this. In 12.6 and 7, Krishna says, Tesham aham samuddharta mrityu samsara sagarat. He says, I will lift you out of the ocean of material existence. And Kulashekar Maharaj seems to be taking that same theme and converting it into a prayer. He says, Samsara sagar nimagnamananta dinam uddharatum arasi hare purushottamosmi. So he's saying, I am drowning in this ocean, my Lord. Please deliver me. Arhasi, especially that word arhasi, it behooves you to deliver me. Why does it behoove you? Because you have promised that you will do this, O Lord. So, how can we take the Gita's verses and offer prayers based on that? That's what I have been trying to explore in this book. So basically, when we have prayers, the prayers can be, generally when we sing prayers, we have scriptural or traditional prayers. That means we have Mangalarti, we have Narsimharti, we have so many Vaishnava songs. And now these have the weight of authority to them. They are great, that is coming from scripture, it is coming from tradition. And when we sing these, we recite these, following the tradition that connects us with the Lord. At the same time, now we could offer personal prayers. Because we all are ultimately meant to develop our relationship with Krishna. So when we offer personal prayers, that brings authenticity. Because this is what we are feeling. We are going through certain situations, we are facing certain challenges. And in those challenges, how can we approach the Lord? So I thought that if we could have prayers that were scriptural plus personal. That means we start with a scriptural verse and then compose a prayer based on that. That would have the weight of authority and authenticity together. And we see Srila Prabhupada does this in his Markine Bhagavad Dharma, the song which he composed when he was approaching America. So there he's pouring out his own heart, Boro Krupa Koile Krishna Dhamera Prati. But in the middle of that, what he does is, he's bringing Bhagavatam verses. So what he is praying is actually very much based on the Bhagavatam. So he prays, for example, that Bhagavatera Katha Sei Tab Avatar Dhira Haya Shune Jadi Kane Bar Bar. That if anybody hears Bhagavatam repeatedly, they will become dhir, they will become sober. And then Prabhupada is making this statement, but then he is quoting the Bhagavatam verses where it says Shrunutam Sukata Krishna, and the whole series of Tadara Jastamo Bhava, how one becomes sober, how one becomes dhira. So this is my attempt to do that over here, something similar following Kulashekar Maharaj and Prabhupada. So there are 5 components in each of the prayers. The first is that we have beautiful picture of Krishna over here. And then with the picture of Krishna is the different deities from different temples. Which deities they are mentioned at the right bottom. Then the way I am approaching this particular prayer, let's move it. It's unpredictable here. Yeah. The way I am approaching this prayer, or this verse in this prayer, that is summarized in one sentence. So please change the memories replaying inside me. And then I've taken the Gita's verse, on which it is based, and then I have translated the verse in English poetry. So, because the Gita is a song, and sometimes we forget that when you approach it philosophically, so get a poetic devotional feel, I have translated that. And then based on that, there is a prayer that is inspired. So, let's look at this now. So, let's recite the verse together. Most of us know the verse, so not responsively, but let's do it together. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. From sense pleasures the wise person abstains, yet the taste in the heart remains. But seeing the Supreme sweet and bright, even that craving loses its might. So, param drishtva nivartate. The craving loses its might. This is Bhagavad-Gita 2.59. So, I would request different devotees to read one paragraph, and then we will discuss the topic about Hanumanji today. Who would like to read the one paragraph? Do we have a second mic? Or does anyone have a mic in their throat? Yeah. Sure, please.
My dear Lord, it is impossible to live completely free from exposure to temptation in a world that is filled with temptations.
Yes, that is a basic fact of life. We can't live with closed eyes. You can go ahead. Next paragraph. Yeah, please.
Even when I resolve to turn away from them so that the images playing in front of my eyes do not get imprinted in my mind simply switches gears and replaces them with images from my past, replaying them on an endless loop.
Yes, this is our predicament. We can turn away from tempting objects in the outer world, but those impressions are there inside us. And those impressions keep replaying. Now, temptations, interestingly, are generally associated with pleasure. But the mind is such that it replays memories not just of pleasure, but also of pain. If somebody has spoken something hurtful to us, now they may have spoken it 1 year ago, but as soon as we see them, those memories get triggered. They start playing. And sometimes we decide, I don't want to associate with this person also. But still, I keep a distance from that person, but still those memories still stay. So for us, when technology is advancing so much, we have created so many comforts in the outer world. And we are creating more and more comforts. But what we are terribly lacking in today's world is the capacity to form healthy memories, or the capacity to change the memories that go on inside us. In fact, many people nowadays grow up with various kinds of trauma. And trauma means what? That some terrible thing happened in the past. It may have some physical impact, but more than that, it has an emotional, mental, psychological impact. And in many ways, the greatest cause of unhappiness in the world at a practical level is not the events that happen in the world. Yes, there are many distressing, painful events that happen. But actually, it is the memories that are there inside. So the events can cause some unhappiness, but the memories cause far greater unhappiness. And when we say, remember Krishna, this might seem just to be like a religious doctrine for those on the path of bhakti. And it is true, but it is much, much more than that. The process of remembering Krishna is meant to change the memories in our heart. The memories that keep playing inside us. See, we all seek to create happy memories. If we go to some nice place, we take some photos. If we have some celebration, we click some photos. We want to keep some memories. And those are physical memories. They're important. And those physical memories can trigger our internal memories. But irrespective of what triggers are present or not present, there are certain memories that are playing inside us constantly. And when Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam, he says he comes and performs extraordinary pastimes. One of the things that he does is, through these memories, through these pastimes, and through meditating on these pastimes, we have the opportunity to form memories that lift us up. Memories that purify and elevate us. So actually recognizing we have so much technological advancement, but there is no technology to change memories. There's nothing you can put on your brain, tuck, all memories are changed. Now you can wipe out the memory of a person. We can give them some drugs, or we can give them some electric shocks. You can wipe out the memories sometimes, but then that person just becomes dysfunctional. When I say change memories for the better. Through technology, there is so much entertainment available now. Now sometimes some entertainment, people just consume entertainment and they forget it because they're consuming so much entertainment. Some entertainment may be very captivating, so it forms some memories. But are those memories really better memories? So the purpose of performing Leela, of remembering Leela, of the Lord's performing Leela, and for our remembering the Leela, is to help us change the memories inside us. And among the various things, yes, the pastimes purify us, the pastimes entertain us, the pastimes can captivate us, but through them all, in one sense, the purpose of life, I'll be taking on this theme tomorrow also. If you want to, from a psychological perspective, it's only not a psychological perspective, but the purpose of life is to make our memory our treasury. Now, right now, for many of us, our memory might be our prison. So, our memory might be our prison means the memories that are playing inside us, they trap us in suffering. This person did like this to me, and this happened over there, and this mistake happened. Sometimes the memories may be about what others did to us. Sometimes the memories may be about what we did to ourselves also. Mistakes we made. But we need to go beyond these memories. And Srila Prabhupada, in Manaprasada Saumyatva Maunamatva Vinigra, 17.16 purport, he says the purpose, to change the state of the mind is the purpose, it is for changing the state of our mind that the Lord performs various pastimes, and we can turn towards those pastimes, remember them, and become purified. So with this context, we'll elaborate on this more again later, but just a couple of days ago was Hanuman Jayanti. So we'll discuss some pastimes of Hanuman. But before we go into this, let's get back to this theme of what our purpose is, to change our memories. And how do we change our memories? By finding within the pastimes something memorable. Memorable could be some point, could be some incident, could be some statement, whatever it is. And then that forms fresh impressions inside our mind. So when the Lord's pastimes are approached, the Lord's pastimes, the Lord's devotees' pastimes, I'll talk about one philosophical theme tomorrow, about the way in which we are approaching the pastimes. But right now, I'm going to talk about the purpose. So have any of you heard this word? What does it mean? Demigod? Devi and Devata, yes. So I was at where was I? Actually, I was giving a talk at the English department in Cambridge. And there I used the word demigod. I said, this is a wrong usage of the word. I said, what do you mean? Then we had a nice discussion on it. But it seems that, now when Srila Prabhupada uses the word demigod, it's almost in the sense of semigod. Is it like somebody who is more powerful than us, but is not as powerful as the Supreme Lord? Now, in the modern context in the way the word is used, the word demigod is used in a slightly different sense. It's like a demigod is a child of a god plus human. That is the way in which they use it. So, for example, Arjuna would be considered to be a demigod in today's usage. So, Arjuna was born of Indra and Kunti. So, somebody who is, so in that sense, is a partly god. So, that is one way of using it. So, Prabhupada is using it more in the Prabhupada's usage in the position. That person has a power greater than ours, but not as great as God's. Now, this current usage is more in terms of origin. That the person is born partly of humans and partly of God. Therefore, not fully God. If the person was born fully of God, then they would be a God directly. But so anyway, Hanuman in this sense is a demigod. Who were his parents? Vayu and Anjana Devi. So now Anjana was a human lady on the earth, and Vayu was a celestial being. So now when he was born, there are many stories associated with his pastime, but I'll focus on one particular theme. We're going to discuss the topic of maturity. Now, children by nature are restless. Now, when Anjana was taking care of her child, she just kept her baby down and she went to a nearby room to do some housework. And now, children, they're naturally curious. And normally if we have our home, we have a small baby, we will baby-proof our home. Now, Anjana was just sitting around. Anjana had gone to the next room. Hanuman was just lying there, looking around. And he looked up and he saw, hey, there's a shiny object. Maybe this is a toy kept by my mother for me. And now developmental psychology is a fascinating subject. Now, when children understand what things. So, some children just don't have a sense of distance. And they're not children, small babies. So, he thought this is not very far away. He just jumped up. And he jumped up. He just jumped up and even he didn't know how much power he had. Just kept streaking through the sky. And streaking through the sky, and he came closer and closer to the sun. Now, this was not the blazing sun of the afternoon. This was the gentle sun of the morning. So, it looked red, but not blazing red. It looked attractively red. And then, initially, when Surya Dev saw this child is coming, first he was worried for the child. The child will get burned. What is the child doing? But then he saw the child kept coming and coming and coming. And the child seems to be charging right towards him. Then, initially he was worried for the child, then he became worried for himself. If we are driving a car, and suddenly we are driving the car fast, and suddenly we see somebody standing in the middle of the road. We were worried, get out of the way. But then, as our street lights fall, that person has a machine gun pointed at us. Then that worry will shift from that person for ourselves. So, Surya Dev started increasing his race. Kept increasing, but this child seemed to be unaffected by it. And then he panicked. And now there's natural rivalry between Surya Dev and Indra. But in this case, Surya felt it's an emergency. I need help. So he immediately went to Indra Dev. And he said, Indra, what happened? He says, help me. He said, look at it. So this child was streaking straight, even he was surprised. And now for Indra, Surya coming to his help, coming to ask for help, was also a special thing. He said, I cannot fail him, I have to show him my power. So Indra didn't think carefully. Just took his Vajra and hurled it at Hanuman. And Hanuman was just a small baby at that time. Now Hanuman was powerful. But when we look at the stories, so what happened was Hanuman was powerful. He also did not know how powerful he was. So first this shiny object is coming and another shiny object is coming. So he didn't do anything. He just came and hit him. And hit him on his face, especially hit him on his jaw. And he reeled back. And he reeled and he came crashing down on the ground. Now Vayu saw what was happening. Like a father may see the child's antics and may be happy. So Vayu was happy. Oh, what is my child doing? But then everything happened so fast. And Vayu didn't expect that Indra would throw thunderbolt. This is a small child. He's mischievous. He's not malicious. He's not destructive. But when the thunderbolt was hit, Vayu immediately rushed forward and softened the fall of the child. The child fell gently on the floor. And then he became enraged. He said, what did you do with a small child? So Indra said, he was not acting like a small child. He said, no, he was just a small child. He said, you could have stopped him anyway. He said, no, this was the only way to stop him. So now what happens is that when some action is performed, at that time two people may have different evaluations of the nature of that action. Somebody says it's very dangerous, somebody says it's not at all dangerous, it was just fun. So Indra felt it was dangerous and Vayu felt it was an outrageous or excessive use of power. Like sometimes it happens here in America, people have guns. And in the small, some stranger comes and somebody takes a machine gun and shoots the stranger. He says, now, who knows, that stranger might have a machine gun, might shoot me. But sometimes the stranger might just be like a harmless elderly person who is lost and doesn't know and is looking to find the way. So there is always this danger of excessive use of power. So Indra used power excessively and Vayu was enraged. Vayu said, no, you did this to my child, I'll punish all of you. And he suddenly stopped flowing. And Vayu stopped flowing, everybody started suffocating. When everybody started suffocating, then the Devatas became alarmed. And then they realized that this was very serious. So they all came to pacify Vayu. And they realized the way to pacify Vayu is to profusely bless Hanuman. And Hanuman seemed to be as if lifeless. But by the blessings of the Devatas, they all came back to life. He came back to life, and of course, the blow that had hit him on his face, that slightly shifted the anatomy of his face. And that's how he got the name Hanuman. His name was Maruti. Now the various Devatas blessed him. And now when they blessed him, he could do extraordinary things. Even without blessings, he could do extraordinary things. And now with blessings, he became extraordinarily extraordinary. And that is not a compliment. What happened is that we'll be discussing this broad theme in today's and tomorrow's session. There is ability and there is maturity. By maturity means the ability to use ability wisely. So now if you consider the 4 quadrants over here, we have ability and maturity. So we could have ability but no maturity, no ability, no maturity, maturity but no ability, maturity and ability both. Now, which of these is the situation in which Hanuman was now? Sorry, so which quadrant? Quadrant, yes. So now baby Hanuman was, or baby or child Hanuman was in this quadrant. Now as he grew up, he had his extraordinary powers and he started doing mischievous things. Now all kids do mischievous things, but if a kid has a lot of power, the kid might pick up and throw something. But if a kid has the power to pick up a huge boulder and throw, then that would be a huge problem, isn't it? So, baby Hanuman, he was mischievous. But that mischievous was no longer fun, it was dangerous. It is not dangerous for him, it is dangerous for everyone else. And then that became a problem. Now, of course, for many people, if they have ability without maturity, they may go far beyond being mischievous. They may become malicious. Malicious means they may use that power deliberately to hurt others. And they may not be hateful people, but at that time, a surge of anger, a surge of negative emotion comes and they may do something which they may themselves regret afterwards. So, what we will be discussing in today's and tomorrow's session is this journey. So, we have from baby Hanuman to the adult Hanuman that we see in the Sundarkanda, and especially the Hanuman who goes to Lanka. Now we could see these are transcendental characters and they're always all perfect, and that is true. But for the purpose of our learning lessons, we can see how the journey toward maturity happens. The best situation is where a person has ability and the ability to use the ability wisely. That is where, so we could say, ability plus maturity. This is a person who is powerful and helpful. They have ability and they know how to use the ability. Here what happens is they're powerful and helpful. Here they become powerful plus maybe helpful, maybe harmful. So we don't know because they just don't have the maturity. They're powerful plus unpredictable. Now some people are unpredictable, and some people at this level may actually not be, they may be predictable, but they may be predictably destructive. That's also not good. Now if somebody has no ability and no power, no ability, no maturity, what happens? They are basically powerless. They may want to harm others, but they are powerless to actually harm others also, because they don't have much ability. Now if somebody has maturity plus but no ability, what will happen? They can do good, but they don't have much ability to do good. So here, if you want to describe all of this in one word, this person will be under effective. Because they don't have, suppose a batsman has a very cool head, but the batsman doesn't have a very good batting talent. So they may not get hot-headed, they may not make a rash shot and get out. But that batsman can't hit very, very extraordinary sixers or anything like that. So that batsman is under effective. Here it is effective. Here it will be ineffective. And the last will be, it is destructive. Destructive in small or big ways. So when Hanuman was growing up, he was mischievous. And initially his mother tried to restrain him, but soon he outgrew her in strength, in capacity. Yeah. So as he was growing up, afterward, now children often don't have a sense of time, place, circumstance. What to speak when, what to do when. So it's okay to be mischievous with other kids, but now Hanuman was just mischievous in the forest, and in the forest there were sages, and sages are known for their ages. Sometimes they get angry. And they get angry, they can be cursed. In the Vedic context, being cursed by a sage is considered to be one of the most dangerous things. But Hanuman is carefree. Sometimes the sages would go out of their hermitage for some work and he would lock the hermitage. Sometimes they would be inside and he would lock them inside. Sometimes they would be doing the sacrifices, and they would a pile of wood which would be there for doing the sacrifice, and then you just take the whole pile of wood and go away somewhere. And they do yagya and they say, where is there's no ahuti left over here. So now he was not malicious, but he was just mischievous. And then the sages decided to, what did they do? Curse him. Now the word curse is a little harsh word over here. So were they angry with him? Well, yes, they were displeased with him. But they didn't really want to harm him. So they told, it's a very curious curse. What was the curse that they gave him? He will forget his powers. Not that he will lose his powers. He will forget his powers. And for how long? Oh, that seems very strange, can they curse someone, they curse him, and then maybe Hanuman's spirit reminds him. And all the curses gone, no longer effective. But the idea was, the curse here, the point was that they wanted that Hanuman become mature. So when he was reminded, somebody has to remind him, but that reminder has to come at the right time. So that reminder has to come at a time when the world actually needed his power and needed it very acutely, where it was something which is vital. So normally when we think of the word curse, it can have two different meanings. Curse can refer to external, curse can refer to internal. Normally we think of curses as externals. That if somebody suddenly loses their business, somebody gets a sudden sickness, they feel it's like a curse, situation of a curse. So we have curses where people's external situation changes in one moment. So Nalukur and Manigriv were very powerful. And what happened? One curse meant it just became like trees. Everything was lost. So curse can mean external changes. So there can be an external loss that can refer to curse. But quite often, when there is an internal loss, that can also seem like a curse. I started by talking about memories. Sometimes if a negative memory just keeps replaying inside us again and again and again, we feel as if I'm cursed. Something terrible, somebody has done something terrible to us. We may go to a beautiful scenic place also. But even at that place, we feel as if that memory, if the memory keeps playing inside us, and we think, what has happened over here? Why am I remembering this so much? We sometimes feel as if I'm cursed. Sometimes we want to forget something, we want to forgive someone, but it just doesn't happen. So, in one sense, if you consider memory, many of us think that the loss of memory is a curse. Like as students, we are studying for an exam and we forget at the time something. We feel it's a curse. We meet someone and that person remembers us and we don't remember that person. If it happens very often, it just feels like a curse. And now some people have the innocent habit, but do you remember me? No, they may be naturally anxious, and that's understandable. But when that happens, what happens is you feel as if the loss of memory is a curse. But sometimes the presence of memory can also be a curse, isn't it? That if I want to forget something, I just can't forget it. So conversely, the loss can be a blessing. And the presence, that can also be a blessing. So are we getting this? Sometimes we lose memory of something unpleasant, something unpalatable. That's a blessing. I was just talking with one devotee. He said he met some devotee recently, and that devotee had terribly hurt him. So I told him, how was the interaction? He said, it's quite nice. I said, there was nothing unpleasant. He said, no, it was nice. Then I said, you remember this had happened? Oh, I had forgotten it. So I said, when he had told this to me, he was very hurt and he needed some counseling. I tried to pacify him. So I said, I don't know whether to appreciate your forgetfulness or to curse my remembrance. He was interacting with that devotee and that devotee spoke very hurtfully to him. But he had forgotten that, and now whenever I see that devotee, I remember he spoke like this. So sometimes loss of memory can also be a blessing. And sometimes the presence of memory can of course be a blessing, that we understand that. So in that sense, memory is a funny thing. So now if we consider that when Hanuman was cursed to lose So we could say there is memory is present, and memory is absent. And it's a blessing or it's a curse. So now at one level, Hanuman forgetting his power, it was a curse. But was it really a curse? No, he was mischievous, and yes, children will be mischievous, but that mischievousness, it was no longer having that power by which he could do extraordinary things. And in that sense, his loss of memory, Hanuman's loss, was it a curse or was it a blessing? How many of you think? How many of you think it was a loss? Okay, how many of you think it was a blessing? How many of you are lost to know whether it is a blessing? Yeah. So the point is that sometimes we cannot know in the situation what something is. In that situation, it may feel something terrible, but it may not be. So one aspect of humility especially in bhakti, when something terrible is happening in our life, we feel, why is Krishna letting this happen? Why is Krishna not doing anything to stop this from happening? So humility in bhakti, one way of understanding it is that to understand that my finite vision is not the final vision. That humility means that I understand my finite vision of a situation is not the final vision of the situation. So in my finite vision, this can seem terrible. And yes, at that level, it may be terrible. But is that the final vision of the situation? Maybe, maybe not. So when Hanuman was cursed to lose something, in that process of losing something, he would end up gaining something. So that loss of ability actually fostered his maturity. It enabled him to grow further. Many of you know that I have polio, that I need crutches for walking. So when I was 1, my mother had taken me to a physician to get a polio vaccine. And I don't remember any of this. And we were staying in a small town in Maharashtra. And unknown to my parents, my mother, my father was outstationed at that time, that particular clinic where the polio vaccine was to be administered had a power outage the previous night. And because of that, the fridge temperature had risen. And because of the rise in temperature, the germs in the vaccine had multiplied. And then the attendant gave that particular vaccine to the doctor, and the doctor gave that vaccine. And the vaccine, instead of preventing polio, ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of it. I was just learning to walk, and I fell and I could never walk normally. But my first memory is about I was 2.5 or 3. And at that time, a distant relative had come to our place and she was consoling my mother. She was saying, "Oh, it's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. Now, I don't know why my mother said that. At 2.5 or 3, what intellectual signs I had shown, I don't know. But somehow that stayed with me. Not the God part, the intellectually part. At least initially it was the intellectually part. And as I grew up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. So a part of me felt this is unfair. But then as I started studying, going to school, or even reading books, I found that I could read quickly. I could remember things well. I could articulate things clearly. And then a part of me said, maybe I didn't articulate it like that, but a part of me that said that I could say that I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. And that is unfair. But then I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability also. So sometimes we get less than what we deserve, sometimes we get more than what we deserve. In the big picture, life is fairly unfair. It is unfair, but sometimes we get more, sometimes we get less. And that's why at that point, at a particular time, a particular thing might seem to be a curse. But our finite vision is not the final vision of things. So I'm very grateful to my mother that she expanded my vision at that time. So now Hanuman has been cursed, but his very curse, or rather the loss of his powers, whether you want to call it a curse or a blessing, the loss of his powers will actually lead him to the development of his character. That when he doesn't have any extraordinary powers to use, then what happens? Then one has to actually become mature. I'll make 2 points. An actual journey towards maturity we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. So now, sometimes when I started this story, sometimes we talk about Surya Dev and a child jumping up to the sun and catching the sun. We say all this is stupid. This is unbelievable. These are kid stories, unbelievable stories. Now, yes, that's one way of looking at it, and I'll discuss this more tomorrow. But if we look at these scriptural stories, there are 2 ways in which you can see them. There are some ways in which they are dissimilar to us, dissimilar to our situations. And they are primarily in 2 ways. In the abilities that characters have. Like for a kid to be able to jump up to the sky, for somebody to have 10 heads. So all these abilities are extraordinary. And the arenas. Arenas means the places where these things happen. So there is heavens and there is this place and that place. We don't experience those kind of places in today's world. But there are very important ways in which they are similar. And how are they similar? They are similar in that all the characters, they have limitations. Every character has they may have extraordinary abilities, but nobody has supreme power. Now, of course, we say God has supreme power, and that's true. But even when God comes in this world to perform leelas, he doesn't always manifest his omnipotence all the time. So just as we have limitations, our particular limitations may be different. So Hanuman, he could go right up to the sun, but he couldn't counter the Vajra of Indra. So we all have limitations. And the characters in scriptures also have limitations. And the second is that everybody has accountability. Accountability means the actions that they make have consequences. So now the specific actions that they do and the specific consequences they have, they may be different. But these 2 principles, that everybody has to deal with limitations and everybody will make choices that will have consequences. And they have to deal with those consequences. They have to live with those consequences. And it is this, when we look at this, we can get some entertainment if we want it. What extraordinary power someone has. What extraordinary domains people exist in. But this is where we actually get elevation. We get education. We get understanding of how to live in our life. Now Ravan had the capacity to change his form and take on the form of a sage and whatever else he could do. But he still could not do everything. He had limitations. He had boons, but still he was vulnerable to humans. He was vulnerable to monkeys. And he made certain choices, and those choices had consequences. So, you probably know this character, Superman. Now, Superman, nowadays there's so many movies about superheroes. Superman was the first superhero. There's some character, some author who developed in 1929, when America was in a deep depression. They wanted some character who would lift up the spirits of Americans. And since then he has been going on. But around 1950s, something very curious happened. That these characters are not created by only one person. One person creates, another makes some more comics, and then it goes on and on. So what happened? that as time passed, they started making Superman. Okay, so as time passed, they started making Superman more and more powerful. His power started increasing. At one time, in some of the stories, Hanuman, Superman flies through the sky, Hanuman flies through the sky. There are some similarities. We may explore them tomorrow. But, at one time, he could just look with his eyes, Superman, and just blow up satellites. He got enormous amount of powers. And what they found curiously, as his power increased, his popularity decreased. Why? Because generally in any story, if there is no tension, then there is no attention. That if we write from the beginning only, no, this person is so powerful, is going to win. Now we may know the hero is going to win over the villain, but still we want to know how he is going to win. But if everything is so predictable, if Superman is so powerful that nobody can even touch it, then what happens is there's no excitement, there's no suspense. So when the power is enormous, then there's no attraction left because you can just do anything. So then the comic creators, they created this whole concept of, what is that? Kryptonite. So kryptonite by which Superman would become vulnerable. And all his enemies would use that. And then that's where the character's popularity started rising once again. So the point is that everybody, when they face limitations, that's when, in those limitations, how they act, how they grow, how they face those limitations, how they grow beyond the limitations. That's what makes the character's story interesting. So Hanuman had enormous power, and his power will come back to him eventually. But when the ability is lost, that's the time he takes to develop maturity. Okay, with limited ability, what can I do? How can I do it? And we will see in tomorrow's session how the character of Hanuman is developed through the choices that he makes. And then finally when Jambavan reminds him of his power, that's the time his abilities come back, but he has developed great maturity by that time. I was giving a talk maybe a couple of months ago. I was in the Middle East, and I was telling a story about how Sita was abducted. And most of us know that story, how Maricha, when he was finally shot by Ram, then he called out exactly in Ram's voice. Say, Lakshman, Sita! And that's when Lakshman was torn and Sita forced Lakshman to go to help Ram. So one boy asked me this question, that when Maricha called out, Lakshman, Sita, why didn't Ram call out? That's not me, that's Maricha. The whole problem could have been avoided. So I told him that actually Lord Ram is all powerful. But although Lord Ram is all powerful, if he simply were all powerful and that's what he were doing, then he didn't have to chase the deer also. He could just have made his arm long and caught the deer. Isn't it? So although the Lord is all powerful, if this is the Lord, when he comes to the earthly level, it is said that he does Naralila. When he comes to this earth, he acts like a human being. Now, above the humans are the gods, and below the humans are the demons. Now, this above and below is in terms of morality. The Devatas are supposed to be better than humans, and the Asuras are supposed to be worse than humans. But actually, both the Devatas and the Asuras are physically stronger than the humans. And because of that, because Maricha was an Asura, his voice was much stronger. And Ram's being because Ram was playing a human role, at that time his voice was not strong enough, and that's why he ran back. So the point is, even the Lord's pastimes, they become suspenseful, they become interesting when the Lord also acts within limitations. And within the limitations, the Lord does extraordinary things. Now, of course, the Lord's limitations are not imposed on him by anyone. The Lord is not cursed by anyone. He chooses when he comes avatar. Sometimes he acts like a finite being, and sometimes he will show extraordinary power. But when the power is lost, at that time, that is when the character is seen. That what does a person do when power is lost? Does that person just become hateful? Does the person feel sorry for themselves and just become bitter? Now, it's understandable if someone does that, but it's not very helpful. So Hanuman will see what he does in tomorrow's session. The last point I'll make now. What is this? Let's see, for all of us, if we have power and if we have character. Now this is the same in one sense, ability and maturity, but I'm just focusing on something different over here. See, if there is no power but no character, then the person becomes prideful. Now prideful is the least of the problems. From there they can become hateful, they can become vengeful, because the power, they can use it for bad purposes. Now, if somebody has no power and no character, then what happens? They become resentful. Resentful means, why does anyone else have power? Isn't it? Why is this person so good? Why is this person so good? Why is that person so good? It's some people, their whole lives are just filled with resentment. When communism started, it promised that there'll be wealth will be distributed, everybody will have equal wealth. But what happened was that it's not that everybody became wealthy. It is that communism was actually driven in real life not by compassion for the poor, but envy towards the wealthy. And then there are some people who said, we'll distribute wealth equally. But then they had the power to decide whom to distribute wealth with. And so there was one social commentator, he said that in communism all people are equal, but some are more equal than others. So basically there's a lot of worldview that are driven by resentment. And resentment does not do anything good, it just hates those who are doing something good. Those who have something good, those who do something good. That's not very helpful. Now if somebody has power and somebody has character, then they are grateful. They are grateful. Now Hanuman will see, when he gains power, he never becomes proud, he never becomes arrogant. And Hanuman is grateful. Now if somebody has character, and even if they lose power, then they remain graceful. They don't become resentful. Yes, it is Krishna gave me power, Krishna took my power away from me. Doesn't matter. So now among these, if you consider having power without character, both are harmful. Being prideful and being resentful, both are harmful. And if we have character, whether we have power or we don't have power, it is always positive. So sometimes we may feel that some power has been taken away from us. The power could be the power of wealth, the power could be the power of some position, the power could be the power of good reputation. Sometimes some people may just spread some rumors about us. And that power going away is a painful thing. But we can see that power going away as an opportunity to develop our character, to grow in maturity. And that's what will happen to Hanuman, and that's what we'll discuss in tomorrow's session. I'll summarize what I discussed today. Mainly discussed 4 points. I started to talk about how life, in one sense, is defined not so much by wealth or power or things. it is defined much more by memories. The greatest source of unhappiness for most people is not the events that happen in their life, but the memories that keep playing in their life. So a successful life is all about creating positive memories. That is what will lead us to happiness. And bhakti is what enables us. In bhakti, the remembrance of the Leela of the Lord, that is what is meant to help us create these healthy and happy memories. Now, within that, we discussed Hanuman's story, and in Hanuman's story, we discussed mainly 3 stages. First was his childish attack. Let's put it this way: his infancy. In infancy, what happened was he had great blessings, and with those great blessings became mischievous. He was hit, and then he was blessed further. So he had powers, and from the powers he became almost lifeless, and after that he became even more powerful. And that was, in one sense, glorious what happened. And then after that we discussed about how he, with his ability, what he started doing was his ability, and there is maturity. So was he cursed? Well, you could say the journey of Hanuman is from having ability without maturity to having both ability and maturity. This is the journey we are going to discuss. And then we discuss about the forgetfulness. When the sages cursed him. So loss of, not power, but loss of the memory of his power. So that, was it a curse or was it a blessing? It depends. We discuss, it could be we remember and we forget. And that could be a blessing, that could be a curse. So for us, whenever we look at life situations, we have a finite vision. And that finite vision should not be seen as the final vision. What is a blessing? What is a curse? We really don't know at our stage. That sometimes what seems like a curse could turn out to be a blessing, and what seems to be like a blessing may turn out to be a curse. And then lastly, we discuss how, when something bad happens to us, how do we respond to it? So I talked about, when you look at these stories, we say how these stories are dissimilar and how these stories are similar. So dissimilar in terms of the abilities that they have and the arenas, the places that they do it. But similar in the sense that they all face limitations. And within the limitations, they are all accountable. We do actions and those have consequences. So Hanuman also faced a limitation in the sense that his power suddenly went away. And then he was not really cursed, but he was held accountable. But what did he do at that time? So we discussed this journey, that we may have power and we have character. So if there is power but no character, then what happens? Then you remember? Prideful. And that could be the least of the problem. They can become much worse. There is neither power nor character. Resentful. Why should anyone have anything good in their lives? It's very bitter. If there is power and character, then they are grateful. Of course, they are powerful. Naturally, they have power, but they are grateful for the power. And if some of the power goes away, then they are graceful. So, in many ways, we'll see that Hanuman's journey will be where he will gain power. So, either way, having power without character is unhealthy, and having character with or without power is healthy. But we all would like to go where we have power and character. That's where Hanuman goes, and that's where how we can go through our life journey. That's what we'll discuss in our future session tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any question or comment? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you for the very nice presentation. I have seeing the finite vision, taking the finite vision as the final vision, where does that leave our individual actions, in the sense that in terms of changing or making amends? Like, let's say, whether it's to see the blessing or as a curse, if we just say, okay, this is just the finite thing, I have not seen the final vision, so let me not do anything. Would it lead to like a complacent attitude like that?
Yeah, definitely. See, there are two different things over here. When he says don't see the finite vision as the final vision, that does not mean that the finite vision is always a wrong vision. It's just not the complete vision. So, just yesterday I was in Baltimore and I had a whole class on this topic about how when some problem comes in our life, how do we see the cause of the problem? Say if right now I'm speaking, this mic stops working, then should I think that, okay, why has the mic stopped working? Maybe I did some past karma in my previous life. No, generally, whenever we try to look at causality, say if somebody eats on a cold night a dozen ice creams, at night they were saying, ice cream, I want more ice cream. And the next morning they have a terrible throat. And they say, ice cream! Now, if their throat is terrible, is it because of past karma? Well, yes, but it is not past life's karma, it is past night's karma. So generally, in Vedic logic, it's called Nyaya. Whenever we are looking for the cause of something, causality is the principle of looking for causes. So first we start with visible causes. Then we go toward invisible causes. And within invisible also, first we look at invisible material causes, then we look at invisible spiritual causes. That means that if by the finite vision, if there is some explanation, then we should look for that explanation. And we should try to fix that. But if by the finite vision there is nothing that can be done, then move forward to something bigger. So the point is not so much how we look at our finite vision. It is more that how do we respond to it, in the sense that for all of us, it is our dharma, the right thing to do. That is the most important thing. Sometimes the right thing that I do will have an effect, and sometimes the right thing that I do may or not have the effect. So then I may say that, okay, my finite vision is limited over here. But we should not use that as an excuse for not doing the right thing. Say, if we cook some food and say it's sweet rice, but there's no sweet in the rice. It's only rice. Should we tell somebody there's no sweet in this? That's your finite vision. That's your finite perception. No, fix it right now. When it can be fixed, it should be fixed. But so when Ram is exiled to the forest, at that time Kaikai, Lakshman is very enraged by all that has happened. And he wants to, first is angry with Dashrath, then he becomes angry with Kaikai. And at that time, he says that, he starts speaking very harshly about Kaikai, and Ram says, you know how much Kaikai loved me. Her love was like the flow of the river Ganga, incessant and pure. So that Lakshman is not done. He says, that's what I can't understand. How did the Ganga dry up in one night? And then Ram says, that's why when I heard her speak those words, I understood that this is the will of destiny. When somebody's behavior has no explanation as far as we can see it, then we can say, my finite vision is incomplete. There's something more going on over here. But if I have spoken so hurtfully to someone, and that person is cold with me, And I miss, this is because of past karma. No, this is not past karma. You did something right now, isn't it? So we need to see what is the right thing for us to do. And our vision should be such that it encourages us to do the right thing. Not that it justifies not doing the right thing. If a person if some person very sick, then if we can help them, we should help them at that time. Take them to a doctor, give them some treatment. But sometimes, despite giving the best treatment, the person may not get cured. That's when we understand a finite vision is not the final vision. Okay?
I have another question. This is more of a clarification. So Hanuman forgetting his abilities out of that curse. So if somebody reminds him, is that a one-time thing, and then all the memories come back and it will not go away? Or did he require frequent reminders?
See, generally, the exact ways in which curses work and how curses are revoked, that particular mechanism is not talked about much in scripture. There is a mystical element to the curses, to how they act and how they are revoked. So now, my understanding is here that the sages had a particular purpose. It was not to punish Hanuman, it was not to hurt Hanuman, it was not to deprive Hanuman. It was to help him grow. Like sometimes, some kids may just have phenomenal talents. Some kids, a 3-4 year old kid can pick up a musical instrument and play like a genius. Now, on one side, if some parents are gifted with such a child, as they say, they're gifted child, then it's important for the parents to develop the gift of that child. But at the same time, it's also important, while the child is extraordinary and that extraordinary talent has to be developed, but it's just as important for the parents, the child also have a normal childhood. The child will naturally have that talent, and that talent needs to be nourished. But that is still a child. A child's normal growth also has to happen, isn't it? So both sides are there. The extraordinary side has to be developed, but that does not. If the child is defined only by the talent, then what will happen is that it can have many different psychological effects. The child may just think, I am so special and nobody else is of any value. The child can become very proud, and that's not very good for that person in the long run. Or the child may start thinking that, I have no value without this talent. So, I was at one devotee's home, and they have this kid. He was like at the age of 4, he started playing chess. His father was playing chess with a friend, and he said, "Daddy, I want to learn chess." He says, "No, when you grow a little older, I'll teach you." He said, "No, teach me now." And he taught his father taught him the first game. Actually, his father defeated him or something. The second game, he defeated his father. And when he was around 8.5, 9, he was a Canadian under-10 champion. He's a brilliant boy. So I was staying at their home. I was talking with him. So in my childhood, I also liked chess quite a bit. So we were talking about it. So then he told me that among all my relatives, I like my grandmother very much. His grandmother has no understanding of chess. So why do you say this? See, she loved me before I was special. Now, the child is so insightful. So my point here is that sometimes we have to make sure that there is a holistic growth. Sages were not really cursing him. That his powers were there with him. But we want to ensure that there is a holistic growth of the person. We are not just performers, we are persons. And we need to, if we can perform, that's wonderful. But we don't want unidimensional growth. Okay? Thank you so much. Any last question? Or any comment? Okay, 2 questions. Best room. Okay, there.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice lecture. In the previous slide, you said with limitation you can get elevation, right? How is that possible?
With limitations, we get elevation.
Yeah, in a previous slide, like couple of slides ago.
No, I didn't say.
Here with limited. How it?
Okay, I'm not saying with limitation you get elevation. I was saying that studying scripture and looking at how even there the characters have limitations and how within those limitations they act wisely. From that we can learn and we can grow. Now, if the only thing special about Hanuman is that he could leap across the river, leap across the ocean, there's nothing for us to learn from Hanuman because we can't do that. Isn't it? If somebody thinks the only thing I have to learn from Hanuman is one day I have to leap across the ocean, then that character will become, okay, it's a superhero kind of character, but nothing to learn for us. But even these characters have limitations in some way or the other. And within those limitations, or because of this limitation, sometimes they also they make some choices and they have consequences for those choices. They are held accountable. But in spite of that, they grow. So the elevation happens not because of limitations. The elevation happens by focusing on this principle that how these great characters also act wisely. And similarly, we can also learn to act wisely. Okay? Thank you. Yes, please. Pass the mic ahead. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your wonderful class, always. I have a question on that ability to maturity transformations. One of the points you mentioned that ability kind of converted into the powerful, and if you don't have maturity, it's unpredictable. Right? So Hanuman ji, when he was an infant, he had the power, but he was unpredictable. But in the same pastime, if you see Indradev and Vayu, right, you can also come to a conclusion that he was powerful, yet unpredictable when he threw the Vajra. Same thing with Vayu. He was powerful, but unpredictable by stopping the flow of the wind, right? Was there any transition for those acts between Indradev and
good question
Vayu to move from ability to the majorityist?
See, within the Vedic tradition, the Devatas have a very curious position. The Devatas are often objects of worship, but very rarely are the Devatas considered to be role models. That often the sages are considered to be role models. The wise people, the Brahmanas, they are considered something to emulate. Even the kings are said to be Adyadachayati Sreshtas. But often the Devatas, they have this curious position within the universe that they are above us humans, but they're not in the spiritual world. So while they quite often the way they act often shows how even good people may misuse power, may get allured by pleasure, may get tempted, may get intoxicated. So that's why Devatas, they are worshipped because they can give some blessings, but they are not considered as role models. And are the Devatas held accountable for their actions? Well, there are times when that also happens. It may not happen exactly the same way it happens on earth. See, one of the things that happens because of karma is that always action will have result. But if somebody has good karma, for example, then what will happen is the action will lead to a result after a very long time. How is that? It depends. Like if somebody wastes money, they'll become a pauper. But if somebody is born in a fabulously wealthy family and they waste money, they will also become a pauper. They will also become poor, but that may take a long time. So sometimes karma can create an intermission between the action and the manifestation of its result. And the devatas are beings who have gone to the heavenly domains because of past punya. And because of that past punya, their actions often don't seem to lead to consequences. The consequences are there, but they take some amount of time to manifest. So sometimes in the Vedic literature it is said that the law of karma doesn't apply to devatas. It's not that simple. It is, the devatas are also held accountable, in particular if they offend the sages. Then they are held responsible. They have become reckless. They are attacked by the asuras. But because of the past punya, they may not be held accountable immediately for their actions. But the principle of we having agency and we being responsible for our actions is a universal principle. The exact way when it will manifest, that will vary. Say, if to make a comment on the current political situation, somebody may gain power and they can use that power as much as they want. Now, they may think they're using it for good, they may be using it for bad. Different people can have different opinions about it, whatever it is. But nobody has absolute power. Now, while they have power, they can do good, they can do havoc. But then that power is going to end. Maybe the next elections comes up, the tenure ends, maybe whatever happens. So now during that time, when a person has power, they can do a lot of things without any seeming consequences. The consequences will be there, but sometimes the power can insulate one from the consequences for some time. Okay. So thank you very much. Shri Hanuman Ji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Thank you so much. So, do we have a copy of this book? I showed you this book also, the latest book which I have got. This prayers inspired by the Bhagavad-Gita. So this is actually 122 prayers. And if you look at the table of contents, it's a very accessible table of contents where each prayer is summarized in one line. So whatever be the particular situation that you are going through, you could just read the title and you could read that particular prayer reflection. It can help strengthen your faith, calm your mind, make you feel closer to Krishna. Many devotees have told me that they find this very helpful to read one prayer before they start their chanting also. The beautiful picture of Krishna and some simple reflections. So this is one book that is available. And then we have this Gita for the CEO. This is, nowadays there's a lot of interest in the corporate world for learning some wisdom from ancient texts. So the art of war or so many things like that have become popular. So HarperCollins asked me to write this particular book. This is Gita for the CEO. So I've taken the Gita's wisdom and I presented 10 principles in the format of a conversation between two characters. One is a person who knows the Gita, the corporate leader who knows the Gita, the other is a corporate leader who wants to know the Gita. And like I was drawing some simple diagrams. This picture also has some diagrams and concepts which are explained through such diagrams. And it talks about how to be resilient, how to always have a learning attitude, how to be sensitive in our speech so that we can motivate and inspire others. Sometimes you think of humility and tolerance as only spiritual virtues that are impractical in the corporate world. That's not entirely true. Sometimes humility, if applied properly, can be leveraged to actually build teams and inspire people to work together. And tolerance can be leveraged to be able to keep ourselves cool and not get carried away by small things, to keep small things small and focus on big things. So this is also a very useful book which you could give as a gift to some of your friends, relatives, acquaintances who may not yet be ready to read the Gita or may not be able to understand the Gita. So they may read this book and that may inspire them to read the Bhagavad-Gita also. And this is a book especially on the mind. You are not your mind, you are better. So this is 64 articles inspired by the mind, by the Bhagavad-Gita's verses on the mind. Each of them also have some illustrations and diagrams. So this is especially for somebody who has who feels troubled at the level of the mind, how the Gita's wisdom can help them. That's explained in this book. So all these books are available. And if you'd like to have, I'll be here for some time to sign the books as well as to answer some questions. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.